come my kids don't look like them kids? In fact, I think I want to trade my kids for those kids. So Luke chapter 12, Jesus is doing one of his sermons, and he is hitting his groove, man. Like, he is hitting his stride. And the Bible says in Luke chapter 12, verse 1, that the crowds were so big that people were stepping on each other. Now, we got a big crowd here today. Nobody's stepping on each other, right? So the crowd was like double, triple, quadruple the size. People are trying to push in to hear every word he's saying. Like, it's almost he's reached sort of like a rock star level, right? They want to hear every single word he says. And so he starts preaching. People are crowding in. He's dropping like spiritual gold and nuggets. Like, people are like, oh, you know how people do that sometimes. And we don't do that at this church, but I listen to people go like, preach it. You know how they do that to some preachers? You guys are chill. You don't do that. You can if you want. He is preaching spiritual truth. And all of a sudden, in the middle of this sermon, this dude in the crowd stands up and he yells this inappropriate question. Listen. Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. This is not the time to bring up money or stuff because mom and dad died and your brother's not giving you your share of the cash. Like, this is in the middle of a spiritual sermon about spiritual realities in the kingdom of God. And this guy wants his money. So Jesus responds and he says, man, I'm not in charge of your deal. Who am I to arbitrate over your situation? In other words, I'm not speaking to that right now. This isn't the context. But what I will do is I will speak to what is in your heart. And I will take this moment, I will seize this opportunity to talk about the motive behind your question, which is greed and covetousness. Listen to what he says. Take care. Be on guard against all kinds of covetousness. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of his, say it with me, possessions. What does he mean? You know what he means? He means your life is not measured by what you own. Your significance is not measured by how much money you have. Your happiness levels are not determined by how many things you own or the dollar amount in your account. Why does Jesus seize this moment to address what he perceived in this man's heart to a crowd of thousands and thousands of people? Why does he do that? Why not just pull him aside later and say, buddy, I think you got a problem with greed. Let's talk about that. Instead of, when is your brother going to give you your stuff? You want to know why I think he takes the opportunity to do that? Because you and I have the same problem. Everyone in the crowd that day had the same problem that this man had. Are you willing to admit you have a problem with coveting? I am. I need to hear this message. Today I'm preaching to myself. This is what I hate about social media. Because people put their pictures on there. You know, they take 55 pictures to post one. And they post their best photo, and so whether they get something new or they're on vacation with their kids or whatever, and then you're scrolling through and you see this perfect picture of this husband and this wife with these 3 little kids at a beach, and everyone's matching and they're all tan. And instead of being like, oh, look at the Johnsons, they look like they're having so much fun, I'm so happy for them, they're on a cruise. They probably have, the drink package and all the food. So happy for them. They're probably doing all the excursions, the snorkeling. So happy for them. The Johnsons. No. We don't do that. We don't do that. We look at that and we say, man, how come I can't go on a cruise? How come my kids don't look like them kids? In fact, I think I want to trade my kids for those kids. Listen, I'm not dogging you. I'm just talking about me. I'm talking about us. I'm talking about what Jesus knew about every one of our hearts. When we look at what other people have, we want it. We don't celebrate it, we want it. That's the darkness in our own heart. It's called coveting. What is coveting? The word means to fix your desire upon something. Normally, something that doesn't belong to you. What do they got? What does she have? What? Her hair, his nails, his biceps. I wish I had. I wish I want. Never content with what you have, always looking at what other people have. Jesus knew that this is the condition of the human heart. And so that's why he takes this opportunity and seizes upon this moment to speak to the entire crowd about what was in the motivation behind this man's question. Coveting. You ever wonder why coveting made it to the top 10, the big ones? You know what I'm referring to, right? The big 10, the 10 commandments, you know? Can you believe coveting made it to the list? It's like, really? I mean, I understand thou shalt not murder. That's a pretty good one, right? Like in this country, we actually use one of that. I understand thou shalt not commit adultery. That messes up a lot of stuff, right? I get that. I even understand the first one. You should have no other gods before me. I get that. But how does coveting make it to the list? Desiring what someone else has. Fixing your focus on what someone else has. How does that make it to the list? Why does it make it to the list? Here's why I believe thou shalt not covet is the 10th commandment. Here's why. Ready? Because coveting is a gateway drug. So it's not that bad. I look at his car and I want his car. I look at her kids. I want her kids. I look at his biceps. I want his biceps. What's the problem with that? It's a gateway sin. It's the one that gets you in the game that leads to something else, and to something else, and to something else, and to something else. Think about King David, ready? King David, he's on his roof one day, right? 2 Samuel 11, right? Should have been at war. He wasn't at war. He's on his roof. What does he do? Looks over, and he sees a beautiful, naked woman. What does he start to do? Yes, you can call it lust, but you know what he starts to do? He starts to covet. He starts to say, I want her. I don't care if she belongs to another man. I don't care if I'm already married, which he was. I want her. That's the one I want. So he has his guys go get her. She comes to the palace, and sure enough, he sleeps with her. She ends up getting pregnant. Her name is Bathsheba, and all hell breaks loose. I mean, all hell breaks loose in David's life. He tries to cover it up. He brings Uriah, her husband, home from battle, tries to get him drunk to sleep with Bathsheba so that they could say that the child is Uriah's. It doesn't work. Uriah's got too much dignity for that. He will not get drunk. He won't even go home to his wife when his soldiers are on the battlefield. So he says no. So David has to go into second gear, which is to put Uriah on the front of the line so that he will be killed. David commits adultery and then commits murder. Why? Because he coveted. Do you see how coveting is a gateway sin? You think about World War II. I'm a huge World War II fan. I love to read about it, study it. I'm fascinated by it. How did World War II get started? Why did it get started? Everybody's kind of chilling. I mean, I know World War I was tough, but they were kind of making peace and trying to make their way through. No, have another war. What? Why? Because Adolf Hitler wanted more land. He called it living space. There's a German word for it. I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. Starts with an L. He said, we need more living space. And you know who's got it? The Russians. You know who's got it? The Ukrainians. You know who's got it? The Polish. You know who's got it? All the Slavic nations. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to go take their land. And if we can't ship them out, we're going to execute them. There's a plan for you. I'm going to take your land and I'm going to kill you for it. And so during World War II, from 1939 to 1945, 70 million people lost their lives. About 26,000 people a day. All started because Adolf Hitler coveted someone else's land. Listen to what the 10 Commandments say. This is the 10th commandment, Exodus chapter 20, verse 17. You must, stay with me, not covet. There it is. Why? It's a gateway sin. You must not covet your neighbor's house. You must not covet your neighbor's wife, male or female servant, Ferrari or Cadillac or BMW or ox or donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor. Like, it seems so innocent. Oh, don't covet. Okay, I won't do that. Got that one, no problem. What's the big deal? It's a huge deal. A nation filled with coveters will become a nation filled with murderers and thieves and liars. And isn't that what we're seeing today in our nation? Because we are a nation of coveters. We want what doesn't belong to us, and it's destroying our nation. And that's why God put it in the 10 Commandments. The Apostle Paul takes it a step further. In Colossians chapter 3, he's trying to warn everybody about sexual sin. And, well, I'll just read it to you. He says, put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you, sexual immorality. That's certainly a problem today. It was back then. Impurity, passion, evil desires, and here it is. Watch this. Covetousness, which is what? What is covetousness? It is idolatry. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but the first commandment of the 10 is, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall have no idols. That's the first commandment. Well, guess what? The 10th commandment says, when you covet, you're committing idolatry. So when you break the 10th commandment, you're breaking which commandment? The first commandment. As it turns out, the 10 commandments are basically bookended with the same commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. Because when you're coveting, when you're greedy, when you're grasping, you're saying that this thing is more important than God. It is valued. Money and things and material possessions are more important than God. And so by coveting, we commit idolatry. Is this making sense?